Hi, all of you. Good afternoon. Okay, let's get started now. Hi, Deepak, Prachi, Dhruv, Sunaina, all of you. Good afternoon. Am I audible to all of you online? No, Princey. They're not same, they're related. When you use the word transnationalism, basically is you have a nationalist feeling or cultural feeling for countries other than the country in which you are living. So I live in France and I have a German nationalism with me because of some history. I live in US and I have nationalism for India. Okay, so I'm living in Vietnam or Singapore or Hong Kong has feeling for mainland China. This is nationalism across borders. But they are related to migration. In most cases, the transnationalism is because of migrations. People have moved to new locations and they carry with them the cultures and cultural legacy. That's why examples of transnationalism will be what we are trying to tap from the diaspora. You are in America, you are living in Britain, you are in Spain, but you have Indian roots. So, ठीक है, we want you to be loyal to your country, at the same time be proud of the country of origin. So that's, yeah, so not just NRI, it could be anybody. NRIs are essentially Indian citizens who have not given up their passports yet, but they have been living in some foreign country for an elongated length of time. ठीक है? So not the same things, Princey. Transnationalism का एक cause है. Okay, say you tell me, this is the country A, this is the country B. I live in A, I work in A, I have my relations here, okay, my children, my spouse, even maybe even my brother is here, my sisters are here, but I have feeling for the country B. इसका क्या reason हो सकता है? Okay, one reason can be that I am a migrant from B. That's one reason. Second reason can be that I aspire to be here. एक aspirational value है. I live in maybe some country which is not very rich, not very well off, I'm not doing well. Maybe I have been traumatized by some history of persecution. So अभी मैं A में रहता हूँ, but I'm not happy about A. And I have aspiration for B. So in A, I can start talking about okay, how B is great, how B is the more superior, and I start identifying myself. That can be another reason. Okay, so migration is one. Second, aspirational हो सकता है. Third can be purely out of the political convictions. Maybe I live in Korea, I'm a Korean national, but my political conviction is I want liberty, I want freedom, okay, which maybe some other country is providing me. So migration is just one reason, but of course the most major reason why we have transnationalism. Akash, my voice is low. Yeah, it's a serious problem. I'm almost speaking at my highest possible volume. आपको लो लग रहा है तो is it okay for others or just Akash wants to hear more of me? Atul, it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. Akash, so आपका system का problem है. Okay, let's continue. So any doubts from what we discussed yesterday? We had 3 conversations largely. One conversation was on what is rural versus what is urban. And I said in the traditional sense, this division is based on occupation, culture, infrastructure. It's based on levels of modernity, development, but it is very subjective. Then we discussed what is the census definition of urban area and what is the meaning of statutory towns. Towns as urban areas because of some institutional setup. You have a corporation, you have a municipality, or maybe you are a notified area council. In that sense, it's considered as urban area in the revenue records. एक revenue record होता है, right? You can collect taxes and all of that. उसमें you are urban area if you have this. Third is urban area, or second is urban area in terms of census, in terms of population size, in terms of density, in terms of occupation structure. और इसके ऊपर हमें ये भी कहा that there can also be administrative discretion. If the administration, the executive thinks the area must be classified as a town, it is a town. If the administration thinks it is urban area and urban management must be applicable, it's an urban area. So that way it becomes a bit more arbitrary. Some noise in the mic. Yeah, nothing much I can do, Ram. I do not know if all others are facing or not. Oh, that's a tricky question. I don't know what to say because it has to be your personal motivation reasons. Basically, somebody is asking me on the online that he or she is 34 years of old. Is it worthwhile to prepare for a UPPCS? So, but it depends on what type of job are you in right now, how much time you can put in, whether you have to, sacrifice some job or family commitments. It's always comparative. Okay, one. Number two, it's nice to study for these kind of examinations, but not as an obsession. So, अगर देना चाह रहे हो, ठीक है दो, but make sure a serious, nice 1 or 2 attempts. तो एक साल, डेढ़ साल जो पढ़ पाओ कर लो, but don't make it a series of attempts after second attempt. But it's very, very subjective. It's very personal. I really can't comment exactly in what conditions you are in and why you are asking this. Okay. So that's one discussion. And the third discussion I moved on towards was what are the types of settlements, and then I discussed what are the patterns of settlements. Types of settlements is on the basis of degree of compactness. Compactness, there are mathematical formula in which they calculate how compact a village is, how compact a city is, but for now we'll keep it subjective. Compactness in terms of how close the houses are, how close people live. So in terms of compactness, we said there are compact settlements, there are dispersed settlements, and there are semi-dispersed settlements. And generally, these three apply to rural areas, because urban areas by nature are generally more compact. Of course, you can always have some people who live beyond the city, can have some land uses beyond the city limits, but that will not change the overall character. Okay. The urban areas by nature compact, people live together, high rises, tall buildings, basements, land is costly, you can't buy more land, you can't afford to have expensive infrastructure. Okay. That's why urban areas are more compact. So this classification is mainly for the villages. Villages, people live together or people live far away. And I have discussed the reasons. What are the reasons why people live like this? It can be because of what type of soil we have. It can be on the basis of cultural diversity. It can be on the basis of conflict, okay, propensity of, or the probability of conflicts. It can be basis of some important resource, some important assets around which people will want to live. Generally, fertile areas will have more compact settlements. Areas which have very important resource regions, people tend to move towards that, they can become compact. If the area is not very fertile, marginal land, you need more land, okay, for people to have livelihood. They become extensive areas. So areas which have grasslands, areas which have mountains, areas which have marginal soil fertility, they'll be dispersed. Dispersed also when, okay, there is lot of diversity. Diversity, people will prefer living in own locales, own regions. Okay, but then I said, very rarely are settlements entirely this or dispersed. Most of the compact ones, slowly, gradually, will start spreading out. And those which are dispersed will also start getting compact. So the more common reason, common patterns, types are the semi-dispersed one. Either they were compact, now spreading out, or they were dispersed, now they are getting compacted, they are converging now. Okay? So we have some discussions here. Moving on towards patterns. Patterns is more about the shapes. Shapes, what the settlements look like. And this applies again to the compact settlements. And we gave you broadly 3 types. Okay, we have rectangular settlements and variants. We have circular ones and variants. And we have the amorphous. Amorphous as in there is no specific shape. It is seemingly more dispersed, more disorganized. Okay, but these two are the ones which have some definite shape. In rectangular, I was discussing, in rectangular, the most common ones are the checkered pattern, also called as the grid pattern. ये सबसे common होता है because you have agricultural land, rectangular plots are more convenient to manage and operate. Rectangular patterns, the roads cut at right angles, the roads are easy to use. Okay, that's why even modern urban planning, roads at right angles are the most common. आप जो जाते हो cities में, you have sectors, right? In most cases, sectors are rectangular locations. Okay, so that's why this is the most common one. फिर इसके variants हैं. We can have a hollow rectangle where the central part probably is a large tank, maybe a large grazing area. It can be house of an influential zamindar or some leader. And one more variant I said are the linear ones. Essentially, linear क्या होता है? Linear means line. Okay. So this is a rectangular one. And the rectangular one starts spreading along one axis. ये ऐसे ही expand कर गया. Ultimately, the rectangular one becomes the linear one. Okay. And these linear ones can have shapes. A star-shaped, arrowhead-shaped, a cruciform shaped. So all are shapes of, depending on how the rivers meet, how the roads are intersecting. Okay, some variants. So this is what we have done, and I was moving on towards the circular patterns. Any doubts still here? Anybody? Are these shapes planned? No. Rural areas mein, the shapes are spontaneous. In rural areas, there is no land planning as such. There is no authority that demarcates what is a residential area, what's a commercial area. So the shapes that develop are because of local geographical factors. They're the consequence of local settings. It depends on what type of land, how far or near they are from. Your friend is asking me, what creates the shapes? Are the shapes because of planning or are they haphazard? Haphazard, nothing is random. Okay, planning is more deliberate, planning is more focused, planning has an objective in mind. What you find is many of these are not planned, but does not mean it's random. There is some control factor. The presence of fertile land is a control factor. The proximity to a river is a control factor. And the proximity to some important resource like a spring or some lake is an important geographical factor. So it's not planned, does not mean it's haphazard. It's a spontaneous adjustment. That's why we said, no, settlement is a very good example of how human activities, they ultimately interact with the natural factors. The interaction creates all these patterns and shapes. Priyanshu. Anybody else, any doubts? Yes, tell me. Yes, absolutely. Settlements is where we live and work. Okay, settlements is where people settle down. Okay, settle down mein fir alag-alag. I'll talk about it today itself. Your friend is asking whether, what happened here? I cannot see you guys. How do I minimize this? Just a minute online. For some reason, I cannot. What happened? Am I visible to all of you online? How do I change the scene? I have no idea if I can see you or not. If you can see me, please be patient. I need to set that again. ये कैसे हटेगा ये? क्या हो गया था? ये सर OBS में मिनिमाइज नहीं हो पाई तो विंडो यूज करने से मिनिमाइज. अच्छा अच्छा ये वाला. अच्छा okay. Okay, I can. It's just that my screen was not showing you guys. Yeah, now it's fine. Now it's fine. ठीक है, thanks. Okay, so आपका question क्या था? I forgot the question. Yeah, so your friend was asking me, is agriculture land part of settlements or not? So when I say settlement, I essentially mean an area where people are working and people are living. So there is a settlement, any settlement has a place of work and a place where you live, as in residence. This place of residence is sometimes referred to as the first space, and the place of work is referred to as the second space. So, दोनों मिलाकर it is settlement, not only the house or the building where you live. ठीक है? Okay, let's continue. Anybody else? Tell me. Yes. Yeah, not hollow in. Hollow in terms of the intensity of land use and the interaction existing there. It's not a gap. It's just that that is not the area where a lot of people access, not an area where a lot of people, okay, commonly go live and work there. So, large tank, a large compound, boundary compound, it could be a large temple that kind of has regulations in that sense. Okay? Okay. Any other doubt you want me to clarify, online, offline? Chain village, ये chain आपने अपने आप coin कर दिया, उसको आप linear ही बोलो. Okay, don't coin your own phrases. Okay, I can take it after a couple of years. Okay, Gaurav's theory then. आप उसको linear ही बोलो. Okay, let's move on. So quickly circular. Circular pattern generally happen for two reasons. One is because of convergence to a very important resource center. Generally, these resource centers are lakes, they are springs, or they can be certain wells. Okay. There is one area with a very, very important resource, and everybody wants to live around this as compact as possible. Okay. Then you have circular ones. It's because of convergence towards a very important resource center. Generally, these centers are around water bodies. Okay. So, this is one reason. The second reason is security. Convergence towards a very important resource center. It can be a lake, it can be a well, it can be springs. Okay. This resource regions or important region can also be temples sometimes. Okay, so in this case, very strong convergence. There's no rectangular block as such, but a very strong convergence, and everybody comes living around that area as a compact settlement. Okay, temples. The second reason I said is security. Generally, areas which have threats of invasions. So, the border areas, we have the important strategic passes, or areas where there is very high tribal conflicts. Okay, generally hamlets. Hamlets will have lot of tribal identities. Those type of areas will again become circular settlements because of security. The example of this is in Masai Mara, in Masai regions of Tanzania. I hope you know who are the Masais. Masais are one type of tribes that live across Kenya and Tanzania. They make settlements called as kraal. K-R-A-A-L. Settlements called as kraal. Kraals are essentially in a fenced area. जैसे wooden fence होते हैं. The wooden fence, a circular fence like this. They have wooden poles, wooden pointed poles. This is a kraal. And inside this, there are small huts. There are huts. It's called as kraal. And these type of kraals essentially are again because they live in savanna regions where there's threat of tribal conflicts. There's also threat of wildlife. The pretty tall poles bante hain. Okay, and they live together as small settlements. So kraals are examples of circular compact settlements in the Masai Mara regions. The area is called as Masai Mara. Masai Mara regions of Tanzania and Kenya. That's a very bad way of relating to a cultural group. He says one who drinks blood. Okay. Dekho, this is being a bit insensitive. One who drinks blood, okay, the one who gets drunk, okay. These are, not the best way of referring. And they drink blood, not anybody's blood. Among the biggest blood suckers are in the parliament, right? Okay, let's not forget that. Across the world, ऐसा ही है. Okay, they have their own cultures, cattle say. Okay, yeah, so let's not get into that discussion. Hamlets, because they are small, they become compact. 10, 15 houses, they live together. That's how hamlets are circular ones. Okay, so one example is security के लिए. Then these security wale settlements, they can develop into two shapes. The ones for security can be two shapes. One is, I said, radial. Radial shapes where there is a central settlement, houses here, and there are roads which radiate out in all directions. These are the roads. You can enter and leave. You can enter and leave. Okay. Radial settlements, where there are converging roads, radial roads on all sides. Yes. Savannah, I said Tanzania, because of tribal conflicts and because of wildlife threats. Why they become circular kraals are because of tribal conflicts and because of the threats of the wildlife. The savanna areas are grasslands. Okay, you have got wildlife, animals, tigers, leopards. Okay, so they make kraals for the security. Okay, let's move on. So shape-wise, they can also be radial ones. Radial ones, okay, where the roads converge. Or ek hota hai annular. They are like spiral like this. We also call these as annular. They're also called as nebular. Not very common, okay, but that's one shape. So in the radial, the advantage is, okay, you can disperse very fast. Say if somebody attacks from this side, you can escape on this side. Okay, it helps evacuation very fast. There's only one road. The main road, to reach here, you must move in this pattern to come here. So if somebody blocks the road here, then you are safe inside. Okay, it is easy, but at the same time dangerous भी है. अगर किसी ने बाहर से बंद कर दिया, फिर आप फिर lock हो गए आप. It can lead to a siege of cities. A fort में होता है, right? Forts are secure, but वही है, if somebody wants to lock the gate outside, okay, then the fort is under siege. So इसका दोनों advantage disadvantage है. The advantage of this is you can escape very fast. Disadvantage is anybody can enter from any side. इसका advantage is you are more secure because you must protect only one road. And the same becomes the disadvantage also. Okay? I mean, don't write all of that, just know this. Annular patterns, nebular patterns, and radial patterns. इसी का एक variant एक और है, the hollow circular. Hollow circular typically are generally the ones around lakes. So if I have a lake, around the lake it becomes a hollow circular pattern. Okay. The lake type are very common in Uttaranchal. They're very common in parts of Uttaranchal. Okay. So Uttaranchal mein kaise hai? There is a mountain here. There's a lake here. People live all around this. Generally, people prefer living on this side. Okay. And on this side, they have agricultural land. यहाँ पर आपका steps होगा, terrace farming होगा. Okay. This upper side is called as Mallitals. Every lake's town of Uttaranchal will have a Mallital. And this is called as Tallital, the lower side. The Tallital will have shops, government centers, schools. Okay, they'll have tourism centers. Okay, so that's how a settlement around a lake develops in the hills. Take the jottings. ऐसे कोई लंबा paragraph नहीं चाहिए इसमें. The example I said, lake villages in Uttaranchal hills, okay, where the upper lake regions are called as Mallital. Upper lake regions called Mallital, M-A-L-L-I, Mallitals. Generally, Mallitals will have cultivation. They have more of farmlands here. They have terrace farms here. Terrace farms. And the Tallital are the residential or the commercial regions. Tallitals are residential and commercial regions. ठीक है? Circular patterns. अच्छा, circular का एक और variant है called as horseshoe pattern. Horseshoe pattern. So this develops again generally at the foot of hills. This is a hill region. Okay, इसके around में you'll have a semicircular settlement, or they can also be along some meandering river. This can become a horseshoe pattern. Or sometimes lakes may be on one side. अगर forest है, then the settlement develops only on one side of the lake. So circular patterns variant is the horseshoe patterns. There are three examples of this. One is along the foothills. Along, we call this as the spur projection. This is a spur, a projection. इसके around में अगर बनेगा, they are semicircular. So semicircular around foothills or around spur, S-P-U-R, spur projections, that's one. Or semicircular around meanders. Semicircular around meanders, or semicircular around a part of a lake. Semicircular around a part of a lake. Okay. So if one side of the lake is forest or one side is very, very steep mountains, then यहाँ पर कुछ activity होता नहीं है. Whatever we have is on only one side. Horseshoe shapes. So जितने भी foot, now see, एक और चीज समझो आप, that these shapes are when the settlements are compact and isolated. But in time, what has happened is roads have been made, railways have been made, people can move, land is more costly now. So people tend to move out. Okay, these shapes, all of them will get distorted. Add a point here that the above shapes are rarely maintained. The above shapes are rarely maintained. In most cases, because of expansion of communication, comma, problems of congestion, because of communication, because of problems of congestion, or because of availability of land and development prospects, most of the settlements lose their shapes. Most settlements lose their shapes and become amorphous. The settlement patterns are best observed The settlement patterns are best observed in relatively more isolated and self-contained villages. In relatively more isolated and self-contained villages. Self-contained villages. If you have brought your Majid Hussain textbook, let me just show you some of the pages. और ये सब reading में don't spend too much of time. Yes. Annular. It's just a cultural thing. Okay. There's a pattern that they have developed and they have been using. Okay. No. It's just a preference. Okay, how they want to live as a more compact society. Generally, जहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा attack का डर होता है, they develop these kinds. Okay, it's just a cultural legacy. That's how they have been building. No, वो roads अलग हैं. Okay, you're talking about a hill where the roads are winding like this. ये settlement थोड़ी है पूरा. सेटलमेंट तो यहाँ पर होगा, कहीं पर कोई विलेज होगा विद ये सेटलमेंट है. ओके, दिस इज द एंटायर कनेक्टिविटी रोड. ये पूरा सेटलमेंट इज नॉट एनुलर. ओके, इन योर माजिद हुसैन टेक्स्ट बुक, पेज नंबर 371 आई थिंक, चैप्टर नंबर 9. क्या पेज नंबर है देखो? 371 इज इट? द न्यू एडिशन. The old edition, it is 365. Okay. This is one chapter, rural settlements. So look at the next page. The first page says the origin of settlements. That paragraph you can have a quick read. Okay. Then look at the next page, page number 375, I think. Check up. Yeah, which says a classification of rural settlements. ये कौन सा पेज है आपका? 375. 375 in the new edition. 373. Okay, 373. Classification of rural settlements. All fine here? This one. इसके अंदर में you have got compact, you have semi-compact, and you have got dispersed settlements. This is 4-5 pages का very fast reading. I have examples from Northern Plains. यहाँ पे examples होगा from Nile Valley, example from Mississippi Valley, example from Yangtze Valley. Look at page number 375. Okay. If you look at new edition में, can you see this? Compact settlements are generally found in plains. दिख रहा है ये वाला? Compact settlements are found in plains or along water bodies where soil, fish, and other resources are rich. When resources are poor, scanty, the villages are small. Contrary to this hunting and gathering, Hottentot tribes of Africa. These tribes are part of the Kalahari Desert. Okay. The Hottentot tribes of Africa, they live in large compact settlements as their territories are well endowed with game and water holes. Intensive cultivation, which clearly represents the most scientific use of soil, has given to the largest number of very large compact settlements. Okay, so mark these sections and have a look. And what are semi-compact one? इसी page में end में देखो. It says these are in the transitional phase. दिख रहा है आपको? Transitional phase. In the growth of a compact settlement, as new technology is adopted and population increases, the scattered settlements start taking shape of the semi-compact settlements and so on. Okay, how they develop. And it shows some examples. It has taken examples from Togo in Africa, example from Syria on the diagrams. Okay. Then what are dispersed settlement? Page number, I think 377 mein hai, right? Okay. Can you see these dispersed settlements here? dispersed settlements are found in areas of extreme climate, or thick forests, or grasslands, or poor agricultural land. The land is more marginal, not as fertile. Areas of extensive cultivation and areas which is essential that the farmer should live on his agricultural land rather than a distant village. So the steppe lands, the steppe grasslands of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, the prairies of US and Canada, the semi-desert regions of Rajasthan. ये बताया आपको मैंने, राजस्थान में है, hill regions में. So back in your notes, you add these examples. The grasslands of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, the prairie regions. Prairies are the grasslands of US and Canada. Is large land, less people living, and not the most fertile land. So people live in scattered settlements. Okay, that's one. Then the shapes. Okay, page number 379. Patterns of rural settlement. Patterns of rural settlement. Okay, so relationship between the houses. Okay, they is identified by observation large scale maps. So there are different reasons. The reasons can be physical environment, culture, social, political influences, and so on. These are the pattern settlements. Deals with compact and semi-compact settlements. We don't find patterns in case of dispersed one. Dispersed का shape नहीं होता. जब compact होता है, you can have a shape. And the different types are, list यहाँ पर है. Rectangular, linear, circular, star-shaped, triangle, nebular. I have categorized them under 3 broad heads. Okay, I have called rectangular and variants, circular and variants. ठीक है, उसी में सारा आ जाएगा. And you have got examples in this. This book has diagrams. This one is example of a triangular village. Okay, in Narbij and Bira village. So remember some names if you can remember. Right? So ये 2, 3, 4 pages हैं. Up to page number, I think, कौन सा page है? 383. Up to page 383. And this reading should not take you more than half an hour, maximum 45 minutes maybe. Because the notes are done, you have the points. Textbooks, see the sequence I will recommend to all of you. Some of you are new here. You first have your class notes. Class notes को आप लोग summarize करो. Then whatever textbooks you are reading, add the textbook content inside summary or add inside the notes. Don't make a separate note for the textbooks. जो मैंने पढ़ा है उसमें example add कर देना है. उसी में add a diagram maybe. उसी में add maybe some schematic. I've left out a point, add that point. So when reading textbooks, don't make a separate note. Directly add in your synopsis, summary sheets, or add in your class notes. Okay, let's move on. So I'm done with the patterns and the types of settlements. The next topic is morphology of settlements. Next topic is morphology of settlements. I'm doing paper 1 and paper 2 at the same time, not separately. Morphology of settlements. Yeah, what is the doubt here? Yeah, page numbers. Okay, fine. You've got the page numbers. Good. Amorphous bata to diya Akash. When the semi-dispersed happens, they ultimately become shapeless. When the roads are developing, they become shapeless. Okay, when there is more connectivity, land prospects, they again become shapeless. So amorphous is essentially the transition from a compact towards a dispersed one. Okay. Now when I say morphology, I am discussing the internal aspects of a settlement. Internal layout. What is the segregation of houses and workplaces? What is the segregation of social groups? The orientation and the alignment of roads and connectivity. Okay. It also means the types of constructions, what type of houses, what design, okay, of architecture. So morphology includes the internal aspects of a settlement. मैंने ऐसे इंटरनल का मतलब क्या है? The layout. Okay. कैसे प्लान बना हुआ है? Okay. The layout, the segregation of houses and the workplace, the segregation of social groups. You'll find in some places, okay, you have got certain castes are living. In some cases, a certain, occupation groups will live. In some places, some linguistic groups will live. There are colonies of potters, the colonies of washermen, the colonies of a different language, Gujarati population or Marwari population or Bengali population. The segregation of religion also. In India, you have got the Muslim basti, the Hindu basti, the high caste regions, the low caste regions. That is an example of segregation on the basis of social groups. And then how the roads are aligned. Are the roads circular roads? Are the roads straight roads? Are the roads in a grid pattern or not? Are the roads some other shape? So alignment and orientation of roads and the types of, okay, the construction, what type of houses, what type of architecture. When I discuss these things, we call as morphology. Write down. Morphology of settlements is another aspect. Morphology of settlements is another aspect of studying man-environment relationship. Is another aspect of studying man-environment relationship. And it reflects the influence of different factors. It reflects the influence of different factors in the history of a settlement. In the history of a settlement. You'll find that when a settlement happens, the settlement is never the consequence of only one factor. The factor could be, to begin with, agriculture. The factor could be, again, political reasons. Some king comes in and decides to plan some way. The reasons could be expansion, development of roads, railways, economy. The influence can be even a deliberate planning also. At different, like say, look at Delhi. Delhi has a morphology that reflects at least 5 type of factors. There is a rural area of Delhi. Okay, uska alag character hota hai. There's a Delhi which has influence of the medieval times and Mughal influence, the Red Fort region, the Chandni Chowk region, and the Old Delhi region. Then we have a Delhi which we call as Lutyens Delhi, very planned, broad roads, some type of architecture, which is even now the power center of Delhi. Then there's a part of Delhi which has got expanded because of economic factors. The expansion towards South X, the expansion towards Rohini. And then Delhi also has pockets of slums, pockets of haphazard squatters bhi hain. We also call this as urban sprawl. So at one go, Delhi can tell us the history of the place. Kahan se shuru hua hai, kidhar ja raha hai, how the expansion happens. So studying morphology tells us man-environment relationship. It also tells us about how historically a settlement has evolved and changed. Right, next, according to Doxiadis, Doxiadis, according to Doxiadis, settlements have 4 broad zones. Settlements have 4 broad zones or 4 broad parts. One is the homogeneous regions. One is homogeneous regions. Okay, these are areas where the land use is uniform. Areas where land use is uniform, with only difference in ownerships. It's homogeneous area. So imagine this is a village or a city. Okay, it has roads, it has commercial areas, it has residential areas, it has an airport, and then beyond this there is an agricultural land. Agricultural land bhi part of urban area hi hai. If you have been to Delhi or other cities also, you'll find within the city also is some farming going on. Or some part of the settlement, I can have forests, I can have trees. Okay. Now in this area, the only difference is this plot is person A, this plot is person B. Otherwise, landscape is same. In the forest, okay, there's no difference in terms of the character. Sari area mein trees hain. Maybe one part is the government land, one part could be a tribal population, one part probably is used by some other group of society. So these type of areas are called as homogeneous areas. Okay, example of homogeneous areas are agricultural lands and forestry lands. Her settlements mein, okay, some element is there. Delhi also has a forest, right? The rich forestic region hai. Okay, so most cities which are planned will have some green area. You may call as park, you may call as center of biodiversity. Generally hota hai in the forest, and agriculture always a part of some settlement or the other. Agar village hai to pakka hi hai invariably. That's one. The second type of zone is called as the built up area. Built up area where construction has happened. The built up area, okay, are the locations that have constructions. Okay, buildings, okay, factories, industries, market complexes. They come under built up areas. Houses, residential areas, buildings, colonies, okay, market areas, जो आपने बनाया है, you have made it, built up area. The third area is the special area. Third area is a special area. Special area is a location of significance. There is a homogeneous area, there is a built up area, there is a special area. Special area, it can be a built up area or even a homogeneous area which has certain special significance. जैसे कि Parliament House, or जैसे कि maybe Red Fort, or maybe a very important temple. It can also be a very important a center of commerce, like say Rajiv Chowk. It is some center which has some additional significance. Okay? In some ways, the special area defines the character of the settlement. वो temple town है, या वो port city है, या वो tourist center है. The special area decides the character of the settlement. Somebody going to Mumbai, he understands, oh, port important hai, or my stock market is important. Somebody going to Hyderabad, Charminar could be important, or the Hussain Sagar Lake could be important. Somebody going to maybe Bangalore, some important electronic city, important landmark, or some of the parks of Bangalore or the lake of Bangalore is important. We call that as a special area. And the fourth one is called as the circulatory parts. The circulatory parts, which is roads, highways, connectivity, bridges. So any morphology are these four elements. There is a homogeneous area, there is a built-up area, there is a special area, and there is a circulatory area. The circulatory areas are the roads, the connectivity, the metro connectivity, the train lines. They are the circulatory area. This is according to Doxiadis. Okay. Next slide down. According to Edward Soja, a very important postmodern geographer. Yes? वो built up में आ सकता है, and if they have some historical significance, they become special area. Okay, so not every railway colony is a special area, right? Not every civil line special area. हाँ, civil line में एक important court भी है, a DM का office है, where you must frequent more frequently, it becomes special area. It's all about how the city है. कुछ cities में cantonment ही special area है. अब दिल्ली में आओगे, थोड़ी बोलो कैंटनमेंट स्पेशल एरिया है. दिल्ली में स्पेशल एरिया हुमायूंस टॉम है, स्पेशल एरिया पार्लियामेंट हाउस है. तो इट वेरीज, इट डिपेंड्स ऑन व्हाट टाइप ऑफ सिटी यू आर रेफरिंग टू. नॉट एवरी टेंपल बिकम्स अ स्पेशल एरिया. सम टेंपल्स आर मोर इंपॉर्टेंट, राइट? सो दे बिकम द बेसिस ऑफ द सिटीज कैरेक्टर. Okay, the next is, okay, this man Edward Soja. Just know this man. This is one of the very famous and a man, he's considered as a political geographer and even a sociologist. People call him as a modern, a postmodern scholar. Postmodern क्या होता है बाद में? Just know this. He has given a lot of concepts in settlement geography, in how society is organized. Edward Soja. This man says that any settlement has three parts. Any settlement has three parts. जो समझा रहे थे आपको. There is a first space. There is a second space. And there is a third space. A third space concept is the innovation of Edward Soja. And this is referred very frequently in our modern times. The first space, the second space, and the third space. Okay. Now, this has been described in two different ways. The easiest discussion is the first space is where we live. Our residential areas are first space. Where we work are considered as second space. I live in Noida. I work in Karol Bagh. I live in Gurgaon. I work in maybe Faridabad. Okay. The first space is where we live. The second space is where we work, our occupations. And the third space is where we interact. Our parks, our museums, marketplaces, where we actually interact is called as third space. Okay. Let's say I'm teaching here, interaction happens maybe at some center of hotel. It happens in a park. It happens in a tourist center. So where we have interactions, we call as third space. So modern cities में the malls are very important centers of third space. Okay, ये नया character है, right? A couple of years ago, we did not know malls, right? Okay, we did not know there are these play zones in the malls, right? Today's third space also includes your social media, okay, where you interact with your friends, people, relatives. Okay, the virtual space can also be the third space. The internet is your third space, okay, where the interactions happen. This is one way of discussing. The first is simplest wala hai. Pasoja adds one more layer of complexity. He says, first space, the first space is the actual physical space, which you can see, you can measure. It exists in reality and physical existence. The first space is the physical space. It is the physical space. Okay. Which is the roads we have made, the buildings we have made, the market complex we have made, the offices we have made, the agriculture land we have made. हाँ, तो मैं कहा ना ये second concept है. This is the easiest one. Okay, most of us talk about this, but this man has gone deeper. Okay, जैसे कि think of the idea of development. Simplest idea of development is कितने पैसे हैं बताओ, income क्या है. A deeper concept is the outcomes. Okay, the simpler concept of the space is the first space is where we live, the second space is where we work, and the third space is where we interact. ठीक है? But एक deeper idea भी है. The deeper idea says the physical space which is existing in reality, okay, which is measurable, which can be mapped, okay, which is a physical existence, all roads, buildings, okay, is the first space. The second space is the social and the political space. Is the social and the political space. It can also be imagined space. The social space, the political space, or even imagined space. Right? You know, say, example, that I live in my house. Inside my house, I have a room called as my temple or worship room. The worship room is something I have thought through, is my space where I connect with God. It's a space where I find peace. A space that gives me calmness. I can't measure this, right? मेरे घर में, my house is my first space. Inside my house, the corner of the balcony, which is my emotional space, okay, I go there, relax, I don't do work, I have memories there, that becomes my second space. The second space is, okay, based on social structures. Okay, it is based on political, okay, decisions. The second space is based on, the second space is based on social structures. It is based on political decisions. Based on political decisions. For example, my house again. In my house, there's one corner where I'm very possessive about that place. Okay, my children can't go there. Outsiders can't enter there. It's where I do my most important work. Okay, so that is a kind of hierarchy, right? Somebody is very, very important who I think deserves it can go there. Otherwise, house is a house is a house. House is a building. Okay, it has rooms, it has walls, it has doors. The whole thing is the first space. But as a part of my mental thinking imagination में मैंने कहा this is my personal space. ये मेरा happiness corner है. Okay, this space is my worship space. This is a very, very important space. मेरा office है शायद, where only important people can enter. I mean, if you look at the table, a table is a table, the chairs are chairs, right? But some of us have seen, no, घर का जो patriarch होगा, वो इसी chair में बैठता है. Right? That becomes the second space. The second space is based on social dynamics. Okay. Only the most important person, the grandfather maybe, or the father maybe, or maybe if the lady of the house who's controlling, she is here, maybe the grandmother is here. So this is now your second space, defined by social conditions, social structures, and political decisions. It can also be imagination. I've thought about that this is my, okay, the peaceful zone. Okay, my imagination mein, this is my emotional zone. That's my second space. The third space is, both partly real and partly imagined and social, where we actually interact and live. The third space is partly real, partly imagined, okay, decided by social factors, where we actually live and interact. Where we actually live and interact. Let me explain this. Again, same idea of house. Okay. These are the rooms. ये rooms हैं. This is the real, which is measured, plots में है. It has physical existence. Okay. Actual room, walls. This is the first space. A first space में मेरे mental level पे, this room belongs to my grandfather, who is now dead, but it's very, very important emotional center. Okay, we have some memories, whatever we have, और ये room पूरा locked है. Nobody enters here. There is one room, okay, where maybe it's a very auspicious room. Okay, but यहाँ पर I go to work to worship maybe, but I don't go every day, once in a month. Okay, so मेरे real space में ये सब कुछ है. Imagination and social condition में ये दो अलग जगह है. My actual place of operation is I live in this room, my bedroom here. I come to kitchen, dining space here. I have my balcony and living room here. This probably is my office. This is my balcony, and I circulate here. This is where I meet my friends, my guests. This is where I talk and play with my children. This is where I cook and I have the hobbies. So, एक है actual space. Second, in the actual space, I have identified some space of special use purpose, part imagined, part social issues में है. And the third is where I'm actually moving. Same thing you have even for villages and cities. This is an actual city with its houses, with its park, with its commercial centers, with its market, and there are roads, okay, there are colonies here, there is farmland here, there is a forest here. There is a forest here. If I add up all of this together, which is plottable, I can plot, it has physical existence, I can measure it, I call that the first space. ये सब कुछ आ गया first place में आ गया. Okay, second space. The government said this is Rashtrapati Bhavan. आप यहाँ घुस नहीं सकते. This is what? This is a political decision, right? ऐसा कोई auspicious थोड़ी है. For all practical purpose, the president is a very old man or old lady. He or she can't even walk beyond 2-3 steps. But look, देखो, okay, 100 एकड़ का land लेके बैठे हुए हैं. Okay, we are saying land नहीं है, यहीं land ले लो, यहीं factory बनाओ. Right? The massive land, government has declared that this is out of bound. ये political aspect है. Social aspect, this is slums occupied by migrants who I don't like. Okay, all Bangladeshis are here. मुझे वहाँ जाना नहीं है. गंदा होगा, lawlessness होगा. I have imagination, right? Like imagine आंख बंद करके all of them are poor. They don't have clothes, they can't put on. गंदा एरिया में नहीं जाऊंगा यहाँ पर. This is my imagined space. Social space, an area of maybe low caste society. In many cities and villages में एक ऐसा corner होता है where a social taboo, okay, and it exists there. Okay, it could be a temple, a very, very important temple, where I have said कि इसके 100 meter में it's very, very auspicious. I have done this on the basis of my thinking, my social systems, okay, and ultimately I am actually living and working maybe in this area. यहाँ मैं जाता नहीं हूँ, ये मेरे लिए है नहीं. यहाँ भी जाता नहीं हूँ, ये मेरे लिए है नहीं. यहाँ मैं घुस नहीं सकता, ये भी मेरे लिए नहीं है. And here I go once in a while, okay, कि आज एग्जाम होने वाला है, इसी रोड से पास करके एक मत्था टेक लेंगे और क्या, my work is done. I hope you got a reference here. A society or settlement का ये तीन पार्ट होता है, okay, where you actually live, you operate, you interact, that's a third space. Okay, you have imagined some important locations, identified some socially structured, okay, controlled areas of interactions, or politically, okay, motivated some land use practices. And third is a city the way it exists. A settlement has all these three places together. Okay, I'll write a short paragraph, all of you. The concept of third space. The concept of third space. Write down. This idea was given by Edward Soja. This idea was given by Edward Soja, referring to that part of a settlement, which is both real and imagined, where people actually live and operate, and interact as a part of a social group, and interact as a part of the social group. You know, end of the week, if you have your phone, it tells you a screen time, right? And that screen time tells you कि आप दिन का 8-10 घंटा फोन पे काटे हो. That's a third space. आपको लगता है कि आप रूम में रहते हो, आपको लगता है कि क्लास में पढ़ाई करते हो. Actually you are living inside this, okay, rectangular piece of, okay, technology. Okay, imagine if I'm spending 10 hours in a day, okay, watching movies or WhatsApp or Telegram or Google, whatever. Okay, this is where my third space is. This is where I live, I survive. In time, this only will become more and more acute. Okay, so settlements are not simply the buildings and roads that we see. They also include the actual spaces where we operate. Is it okay, all of you? Okay. Add a point here that in modern town planning, planning for third space is a conscious element, in organizing space and interactions. देखो हमारा जो conventional notion था, what is a good planned city? A good planned city is roads are nice. A good planned city is the buildings are nice. A good planned city is a good power connectivity, good water connectivity. There's no congestion. There's no problem of law and order. So whenever we planned cities in the conventional sense, we always planned in this way. Now we say your planning must have an interaction space also. Let's plan for parks. Let's plan for centers of cultural interactions. So आपका दिल्ली हाट है, right? Delhi Heart is what? Essentially a complex where you can come together, culture. Think of having a planned center of concerts, a planned center of sports. Your stadiums are third space where people come and interact. Okay, so settlements ka, this element is also consciously being planned for. So hamare third space mein, we did not have, remember, we didn't have water charging centers earlier, mobile charging centers earlier. Okay, now you'll find airports mein, a separate corner hoga na where you can charge your phone, and those areas will have chair, table, sofa laga hoga, where people can get together and talk again. In your malls, the food courts are very good examples of planned third space. Okay, where you can come together, have your parties, have interactions and so on. Okay, so morphology may we also add the concept of third space. All fine, all of you? Okay, let's move on. Yes. सेकेंड स्पेस में इंटरैक्शन नहीं हो रहा है, बस एक जगह है. दोबारा पढ़ो. Your friend is asking difference between second and third space. Third space is where we actually live and interact. जैसे दिल्ली में राष्ट्रपति भवन है, हम वहां जाते हैं क्या? Are we living there? Are we going there? Are we interacting with the president there? We are not. वो जगह है या नहीं है? और क्यों नहीं जा रहे? Because of a law. The law says you can't go there. Right? So that is a space defined by political decisions. It's a second space. But it is not a part of my third space. Is it okay? Yes, it will vary. Okay. It will vary on who you are. So third space of mine is not your third space. Absolutely. So, let me see, some of you will appreciate this. When we talk about a place, what's a place? Okay. Most of us know place as a location. Now we say the place is more than a location. It's not simply a coordinate. It's not simply a land. It's not simply, okay, a territory. It's also how we perceive it and how we operate on it. Yes, you're very right. The third space concept and even the second space concept is a subjective concept. The first space is absolute. वो real है. You can plot it. Second and third space are subjective. It varies from person to person. Yes, you're right. For our President Murmu, okay, Rashtrapati Bhavan is a third space. But for me, it's not my third space. Okay, the cantonment area, जिसमें कि restrictive rights हैं, वो मेरा third space नहीं है. But for the army and the navy who work there, it's the third space for them. So third space and second space are subjective concepts. Very nice. Good. No. Okay. It's where you actually work and live becomes a third space. It depends, Gaurav. It depends how it operates. Okay, let's move on. The next is morphology of rural areas. Morphology of rural areas. I gave the higher concepts to you. Now I'll discuss, okay, in the specifics. Morphology of rural areas. Okay, write down. Now see, three things about rural areas. Number one, that they develop and expand largely spontaneously. Write down. Three aspects of rural areas kya hai? They develop and expand largely spontaneously. What do I mean by that? Okay, they develop and they expand spontaneously. का मतलब क्या है? There is no deliberate planning. There is no deliberate planning. Okay, जहाँ convenience है, where I can make a road, where I can farm, where I can make a house. I don't seek permission. I do not seek any formal authority. I don't have a building plan. I do it. So they develop spontaneously. अपने आप होता है. One. Number two, rural morphologies are developed largely around agriculture and agriculture activities. They develop around agriculture and agriculture activities. So market भी होगा, link to agriculture होगा. अगर roads भी है, link to agriculture है. ठीक है? अगर manufacturing है, वो भी agriculture है. So in
rural areas, all activities and all land uses are directly, indirectly linked to agricultural activities. Okay. The third aspect, okay, the elements of rural landscape are more traditional. They are more traditional and not as modern developed, infrastructure like those we have in the urban areas. Not the modern developed infrastructure like those we have in the urban areas. ठीक है? The fourth aspect is rural areas have very strong social basis of morphology. They have a very strong social basis of morphology. When I say social basis, I mean what? Caste influence, a religion influence, occupation influence, within bracket it down. The social basis क्या होता है? The influence of caste, the influence of religion, okay, and the influence of occupations, okay. There is a strong social differentiation that decides many things. Road kahan banega, what type of land use we will have, where will people live, where can people circulate. A strong control is the social factors. Within bracket mention, that is because the rural landscapes, are traditional in nature. They are traditional in nature. Okay. So these are 4-5 elements of our rural morphology. Okay. Right next, there are two models of rural morphology. One is called as the religious dominance model. The religious dominance model is also called as distance maximization model. The religious dominance model, also called as distance maximization model. देखो above features apply हो रहा है. Above features क्या है? Agriculture dominates. Above feature क्या है? It is spontaneous. Above feature क्या है? There is more of tradition. Above feature है, there is social segregation. Keeping these in mind, what does a village look like? Okay. What looks like, there are two models, there are two examples of how things happen. One is the religious dominance model. इसमें क्या होगा? The organization of the village is controlled by, okay, the temples or the mosques and the influence of the dominant castes and social groups. They decide who will live where, in which the powerful caste, the powerful group, they want to live as far as possible from the less important or the lower castes. They maximize the distance. Okay. Some are untouchables, they live outside the village. The most powerful one, the zamindar, the priest class, lives at the center of the village, jahan par ki temple hoga. Okay. It is a very traditional setup. Write down. The religious elements of temples or church, the religious elements of temples, church or mosques, and the dominant influential caste or social group, the dominant influential caste or social group determined determine the organization of the village. They determine the organization of the village. All locations of importance, all locations of importance, जैसे well, okay, fertile lands, all locations of importance like wells, fertile land, tanks. Water is a very big issue, right? Okay, tanks, or the place of worship, are controlled and dominated by the influential groups and the high castes. Whereas the low castes and the untouchables, the landless farmers are forced to occupy the peripheral areas of a village. ठीक है? The religious factor decide who lives where. Write down. This is also visible in segregation on religious lines. This is also visible in segregation along religious lines in the villages of India. This is also visible in the segregation along religious lines. Watch here. Social segregation. Okay, we're separating groups. What are the bases? The social segregations can be on the basis of caste. It can be on the basis of class, rich population, poor population. It can be on the basis of occupations. It can be on the basis of religion. They get segregated. And the segregation is about the distance maximization. Okay, we want some groups to be as far as possible, some castes to be as far as possible. We want some religions to be as far as possible. Okay, that's why we call this as distance maximization model. Within bracket mention, this model is based on the idea that certain social groups and communities prefer least interactions among them. They prefer least interaction amongst them and therefore maintain maximum distance. All good here, all of you? So what are the basic elements of rural morphology and what are the models of morphology? The first model is the religious model. Okay. The second model is the secular model. Now see what happens. Say this is a village. This is a village which is very traditional. Caste dominates. Land ownership is very skewed. There is communal sentiments. There is a strong role of local panchayats and informal authorities. Okay, you have a village, okay, where a traditional one, 2, 3, 4 people will call the shots. They are the zamindars, they are the influential castes. Okay, they are maybe historically rulers, maybe from that lineage. Education is poor. Everybody is farming or linked to farming. So this model develops. But gradually, when the village comes under the influence of a city, okay, यहाँ पे एक urban area है, धीरे-धीरे urban areas expansion is happening, okay, where roads are being built, where education is now taking off, land has become now costly, you are no longer a farmer, okay, so you are working elsewhere. Even if you're low caste, now you have got more money, you can acquire more land. There could have been a high caste, but now he is a poor man. Okay. Now the land use is controlled by urban planning. यहाँ पर तो informal था ना, अब एक proper urban planning आ गया. Think of Delhi master plan. Delhi master plan will plan even the villages around Delhi. So in those systems, what happens? The traditional morphology now collapses. Now there are 3 important factors that control, which is the land price controls. Okay, who can afford land price? Second factor will be, okay, accessibility. Kitna pass or dur hai in terms of highway, in terms of an expressway. And third factor is technology and construction machinery. Now the landscape is changing. Who can afford a land, he'll buy. It doesn't matter high caste or low caste, a rich man, whatever. If he can afford a land, he can buy the land. Now the water supply is not based on tanks. Ab sabke paas mein piped water supply hai. So the importance of tank has now declined. Okay. Temple, because there is a government here, they control the shots. So temples can't disallow anybody from the temple. So now everybody has become equal. All are worshippers now. So this village is now undergoing social transformation. Now people will want to live, okay, so that the land price is managed. Okay, so cities mein, why do we have tall buildings? Essentially, the land price is very, very costly. I can't afford it. So I make a building, 10 stories, each floor has 3 families. So 30 families together are paying for the piece of the land. अब यहाँ थोड़ी है high caste ऊपर रहेगा, low caste नीचे रहेगा. You can afford it, you buy it, as simple as that. So the social hierarchy is now impacted. Okay, who I sell to depends on who can afford the price I'm quoting. Okay, I don't care about whether he is what occupations there. So when this starts happening, the rural morphology starts changing. और ये होता है in area, this area जहाँ पर transition होता है, we call this area as the rural urban fringe region. It is at the margins, village or city के margins में. Okay, so think of what's happening in locations around Jewar near Noida. You heard about Jewar airport? Okay, Jewar is an old village. Like it has its own traditional society. Airport coming in, land getting acquired. Now people are moving in there. The traditional systems will collapse now. Okay, so now this becomes a part of the fringe area. Dheere dheere, the fringe area will become the main city. Think of how Gurgaon has changed. Okay, now Gurgaon is far more urbanized than some parts of Delhi itself, right? Okay, so a society from rural area transiting towards urban area will go through this secularization process. All fine, all of you? Write down. Secular model क्या है? Okay. In the economic and social evolution of a rural area, in the social and economic evolution of a rural area, modernization, urbanization, technology and land price, become a more important factor in the layout of the settlement. Become a more important factor in the layout of a settlement. The traditional factors of caste, religion, and identity. The traditional factors of caste, religion, and identity slowly fade away. And the land use patterns change to accommodate new infrastructure, new economic models, and new elements of planning and administration. Okay. So what influences is not the traditional controls. Now got new controls of infrastructure is changing. Ab road ban raha hai, so your road will decide what type of land use you'll have. Occupations will change, road will change. Okay. Now laws come in, governance will come in. They will decide what land is used for what. Write down the secular morphology is largely the consequence of rapidly changing social and economic mobility. The consequence of rapidly changing social and economic mobility. देखो, in the old system, I can't move. जो मेरा caste है उसी में फंस के रहा हूं मैं. I can't get out of my caste. I can't get out of the location where I live. I can't get out of my religious identity. I can't escape my occupation identity. So in the old models, my mobility is less. I can't change. In the secular model, I have education. I have administration with me. I have new governance models with me. I've got more freedom, so I can now become more mobile. I was a farmer, and now I've become an engineer. Maybe I was a potter with education. I have now become a teacher. Okay, I have acquired more wealth. I have bought a land and maybe converted that into some other land use and not agriculture. So the secular model happens when people can start moving in terms of their identity and in terms of their occupations. Okay, write down that this such morphologies, such changing morphologies are best applicable to rural areas. They are best applicable to rural areas in the rural urban fringe. In the rural urban fringe. RUF बोलते हैं short में. I'll come back on this afterwards again. Syllabus का part है. Is best applicable for the rural urban fringe. We also call these areas as peri-urban areas. ये बहुत popular question है in your geography. Okay. Town planning में, urban problems में, urban sprawl में, you use this term. This type of secular model is feature of rural urban fringe, also called as the peri-urban locations. All good here? Next slide down. The traditional morphology, the traditional rural morphology, next point, in general, the traditional rural morphology is also representative of typical architecture and constructions. Typical architecture and constructions that conform to or that match the local geographical controls or social factors. That match local geographical controls or social factors. ये morphology में जो घर होते हैं, even they will reflect the geographical factor. जैसे कि, for example, areas with rainy conditions, you'll have sloped or a slant roof. The roofs, they will have thatched roofs. You know what thatched roofs? You use straw and grass to make a roof because of agriculture dominance. Areas which are flood prone, they will have higher plinth level. Likho, write down these points like a list. Rainy regions which have good rains, they are sloped or slant roof. Sloped or slant roofs. Modern construction में all will have flat roofs. और जो भी design है वो design की वजह से, not because it's raining. Okay. Because of agriculture, the roofs can be thatched. Thatched means they use grass or straw. Okay. THATCHED, thatched roofs. In the flood areas, the houses will have higher plinth level, PLINTH. They will have higher plinth. Plinth means the floor level. So it's like this. If this is the road or the land, your houses ka higher height hoga. You'll have a veranda here. Okay. And you will have steps here. So this is called as the plinth level. Or ye hai actual ground. The houses are built at a higher heights. They have higher plinth. Next slide down. Areas with hotter climates will have higher roofs. Hill regions have lower roofs. Construction materials are locally sourced. Local bamboo, local rocks, local mud. Next, social factors like patriarchy adds elements of courtyards inside the houses. Add elements of courtyards. Angan bolte hain. AANGAN, angan. Courtyards inside the house. I hope you know courtyards kya hai, angan, right? Which is, this is the house. Okay, all around you have got rooms. Okay, the entrance or exit, and this is the common circulation area. So women not allowed to go out, they interact here. Okay, this is a very common feature of most of the traditional houses. Okay, where you'll have a common courtyard, or courtyard may you might have a small well here, or otherwise a well could also be outside in the backyards. A typical layout. So even social factor decides, okay, what type of layouts we have. Okay, so that is part of your rural morphology. Write down. In India, the rural morphology of northern and southern India is fairly comparable. The rural morphology of northern or central India is fairly comparable. Most of the differences are because of local geographical factors. Northern and southern. The morphology of northern and southern is fairly comparable. Why? Why? Because social conditions are very common. वो North India, South India है, patriarchal. North India or South India, there is a caste system. North India or South India, there is zamindari system. Right? So there's not much of difference in northern village and southern village, except for the variations related to geographical factors like climate or terrain. Like climate, terrain, or vulnerability to disaster like floods. Because of vulnerability to disasters like floods. Fine, all of you? Yes. Of slums. Slums urban का part है ना? Okay. No. स्लम होता कहां पे? गांव में थोड़ी होता है. स्लम नो, ये भी गड़बड़ आइडिया है. Slums are not in the peripheral part. Slums are in the सिटी के सेंटर में होता है. इसका रीजन ये है, स्लम्स में कौन काम करते हैं? The people who are important for the local economy, right? And they don't have money to commute long distances. So in most cases, slums develop near the city center. अगर मेरे पास पैसे हैं तो मैं छोड़ के बाहर चला जाऊंगा. We'll talk about that right now. The slums are not features of rural areas. They are features of urban. तो हम पढ़ाएंगे अलग से urban area now. Yeah, okay. So let's take up now next topic. Take a fresh page. Urban morphology. Urban morphology. Somewhere in your notes, so कहीं पर भी, remind yourself that these answers must come with examples from your experience. Okay. Tomorrow we'll have some discussions with case studies also on this, where we'll draw the maps of some cities, we'll show you. But my recommendation, try carve from your own city. Okay. Invariably, most of us know one or two cities properly. Okay, South India say, maybe you know Chennai better, you may know Coimbatore better, you know Trivandrum better or Calicut better. Some from Bangalore, you know Bangalore better. So every city में दिखाई देगा आप कुछ ना कुछ. So these answers write from your experience, not mechanically copying the notes. Notes से concepts ले लो, the technical term ले लो notes से, but apply करके लिखना, ठीक है? खासकर urban morphology. Write down. So difference क्या है? So morphology again, it is about the internal structure of a city. About a city. Okay. इसमें भी वही आएगा. What is the layout? What is the social segregation, if any? What is the land use pattern? What is the alignment of the roads? what is the type of architecture. It also includes all these factors, just like we have the village. The difference between urban versus rural is 4 differences. Number 1 is the urban morphology is relatively more structured and organized. It is more structured and it is more organized. It is more deliberate. It is more deliberate. I'm not saying it's entirely deliberate. So planning elements bhi aata hai. But it is more thought through. 1. Number 2, the major control of urban morphology is economic factors. Economic factors and accessibility factors. How close you are towards a major road, how close you are near some factory. Okay. Can you afford the land or not? Economic factors and accessibility control more, which implies the traditional social factors like caste, religion, they are relatively less important. They are relatively less important. Okay. Third element of urban morphology is the urban morphologies have very distinct modern architecture. It is not the local material alone. They are very modern architecture. Okay. And a fourth aspect is that there is a strong class differentiation. Rich poor का difference है इसमें. There is strong class differentiation, and in lot of modern cities में this class differentiation is also visible in terms of racial differentiation. The migrants will make up a different race. The migrants make up a different class and they get segregated. It is not in terms of religion, not so much in terms of caste, not so much in terms of language. Okay. हालांकि वो भी है, because इंडिया में क्या है ना, villages have become cities. Okay. Most cities of India were villages which have become large and now they behave as towns. Because of which the cities also have elements of caste. The cities also have elements of tradition. But they are not as dominant as what we find in the rural areas. So these are the 4 important features of urban morphology. Okay. Right next, slide down. The urban morphology has been an important theme in sociology. Urban morphology has been an important theme in sociology and was introduced into geography in the 1920s. In the 1920s, under the Chicago School of Geography. Under the Chicago School of Geography. देखो, geography is very clear, okay? जैसे ना मैथमेटिक्स बहुत क्लियर है. जहां पर आप नंबर यूज करोगे, I'll say what mathematics है. Okay. You have mathematics in physics, mathematics in chemistry, mathematics in engineering. जिसमें wherever you have numbers, you got mathematics. The geography is very clear. Anything which is about land pattern, which has some arrangement of space, which has man-environment relationship, हम बोलेंगे वो हमारा geography है. Okay. So when urban studies were developing, okay, and urban studies will have social studies, sociology studies urban, okay, society. But the moment they started with studying patterns, where do rich live, where do poor live, how are the roads aligned. Okay, then geography says it is our domain now. So 1920s mein the University of Chicago they pioneered lot of urban studies, and one of the first studies was study of urban morphology. Okay, among the first scholars of urban morphology was Burgess. We'll talk about him now. Okay, Burgess model of urban morphology. Okay, write down. Okay, the following are the models of urban morphology. Models of urban morphology. Now see, this is not mentioned in paper 1. So generally क्या syllabus में क्या है? Paper 1 has all the models and paper 2 has the Indian dimension, right? But this topic is not mentioned in paper 1 में नहीं है, but paper 2 में mentioned है. But I should still do some models of paper 1. Okay, and they have asked already, not mentioned, but they have asked. Okay, so syllabus say we're going beyond that. Okay, so what are the models? The first model is the concentric zonation model. The concentric zonation model. This was given by Parks and Burgess. By Parks and on the first models of urban morphology. By Parks and Burgess. We call these studies as a Chicago School of Study. Chicago School of Study, Park and Burgess. So this model says, sun lo pehle, says, they say, and see, these models are based on studying Chicago and some of the industrial revolution cities, such as Detroit. These are considered as poster boys of American urbanization. Yahin se, in many ways, the modern urbanization started. They had industries, they have factories. Okay, so most models are based on the study of Chicago, okay, and study of Detroit. Okay, this is where you see the class difference, workers, capitalists, okay, roads, connectivity, and so on. Okay. So this model, what it says is that there is a city center. The city center they have called as the CBD. And assuming the land otherwise is flat and there is no variation of climate or resource, they say that around the CBD, the land use pattern is in the form of concentric circles. ये CBD क्या है? The CBD is short में the Central Business District. This is the main commercial heart of the city. Okay. So there is a central CBD, which is the central commercial center. All offices, all marketplaces, all trading, okay, all buying, selling happens from here. And around this, the city will develop. So what they say is, okay, now this is the center of commercial activity. So center of employment ye wala hai. This is where you have got jobs. So because of that, lot of poor population will start moving in. They come in, they start finding jobs here. Okay, and the CBD is catered by, okay, a transition zone, okay, which has light manufacturing. इसमें कि packaging industry है, for example, okay, you know, cartons, light manufacturing, light assembling going on. Okay, and lot of poor population comes and find jobs here and find jobs here. So around the CBD, you'll have a very high concentration of the slums and the poor populations. Because see, they can't afford. If they live here, they can't travel every day, correct? Okay. Back then, abhi bhi for that matter, it is expensive. to take a metro, to take a cab, to take a bus. Okay, it's expensive. So they will say कि यार हम यहीं पे रह लेंगे in any condition without amenities. We live here and we work here. When this area becomes crowded, whoever the rich people here, they find it's no longer livable. So the rich people will move out and start occupying the peripheral areas. And this is aided by the development of roads, aided by communication, motorways, aided by bus systems. So by the time you hit 1930s and 40s, car has become very, very important. So these people, they live in big houses, large complexes, okay, suburban areas. They have a car, they come work here, they go back. They work here, they go back. So this area has, okay, CBD. It has a transition zone, which includes light manufacturing. It has poor populations of different degree, or beach mein will be the middle class population. The society arranges in terms of class like this. Okay, there is a slum area, worker population, poor population. There is a middle class population, typically working as okay, the white and the blue collar jobs, and the more affluent ones live further away. Okay, write down. Zonation. Yes. Because इसकी वजह से ना, हाँ, the poor population is living in slums. वो घर थोड़ी खरीद रहे हैं यहाँ पर. Okay, they are unauthorized, right? If they can afford land, वो तो यहाँ खरीद लेंगे. They live in the office, they live in the alleys, back lanes. Okay, they live in unauthorized colonies. Okay, आज slum population कभी थोड़ी land खरीदता है. That's why they are squatters. They can occupy the land, and then slowly they become a very powerful vote bank. You can't remove them very easily. Dharavi कैसे बना? ऐसे तो बना आपका. Dharavi in Mumbai is inside the heart of the city. Santa Cruz के बगल में ही you have a Dharavi, right? Because this population can't move, and they have economic, okay, reasons to be here. ठीक है? Okay, let's move on. So, write down. The city develops around a central CBD or a central commercial district. It develops around central commercial district called as the CBD, which is the heart of the economic activities. Which is the heart of the economic activities. The following are the zones, concentric zones around the CBD. The following are the concentric zones around the CBD. जैसे 1, 2, 3, 4 numbering कर लो. Okay. We have zone 1. Zone 1 है, ये transition zone है. Zone 1, okay, is the transition zone, which has light manufacturing, packaging units, It also has slums. Unauthorized occupations, of land, and squatters, SQUATTERS. It has squatters. What does squatter mean? Basically, जाके कोई बैठ गया. Squatting means what? Sitting down, right? Because I occupied the land first, it becomes mine. So, you have this small, pan kiosk, okay, tea shops, yes. So they are squatters, okay. So they sit there, it's there, MCD comes again, removes them, okay. Sham tak, wapas they are there, okay. So these will be squatters, very, very mobile in that sense, okay. 1. Then we have zone 2. Zone 2 is the low class residentials. ये poor नहीं है like the slums here, but they are low class residentials. Most of them are factory workers. Most of them are factory workers living in low cost affordable dwellings. Low cost affordable dwellings. Then we have zone 3. Zone 3 is the middle class dwelling. The middle class dwelling. Okay. So see, देखो, this population, if you compare with this and this, these are the guys who have moved in recently. Most of them are migrants here. The poor class dwellings and the slums here, they are migrant populations. Okay. The rich people who may have lived here once upon a time, they have moved out, so ये भी नया occupy कर रहे हैं land. The actual native people are here. Okay. ये ना city के पास में है ना दूर में है. Right now, this zone has most of the local natives who have not been displaced yet. They have most of the local natives who have not been displaced yet. Okay. They are among the most social and economically mobile population. They are among the most socially and economically mobile population. Okay. They can, because of education, jobs, they can become richer. Okay. Sometimes bad investments, they can become poor very fast. So these are the ones who are the most mobile populations. Okay. And then the last zone, the next is the zone of rich class dwellings. The zone of rich class dwellings who live beyond the main city, in the suburbs and commuter zone. In the suburbs and in the commuter zone, means they will travel every day. Commuter zone. Next, the development of this zone was aided by expansion of motorable transport. Was aided by the expansion of motorable transport. Particularly after the 1930s and 40s. After the 1930s and 1940s. So when the cars became more popular, okay, they started moving much more faster. Okay, next slide down. The features of American CBD. ये जो American CBD है, इसका feature क्या है? Features of American CBD. The 4-5 features. Number 1 is exclusively commercial class. CBDS. The CBD is exclusively commercial functions, offices, light manufacturing, trading, shops, malls. They have exclusive commercial functions. Number 2 is very high land rentals. They have very high land rentals. The costliest land is here. Rentals. Number 3 is very intensive land use. Very intensive land use. and therefore tall buildings and skyscrapers. And therefore tall buildings and skyscrapers. The fourth is that it becomes the dead heart after office hours. It becomes the dead heart after office hours. Office is closed, shops are closed. 6-7 बजे के बाद में there's no activity here. Okay. So commercial functions, high rentals, intense land use, tall buildings, and the dead heart after office hours. Okay. In comparison, next point, in comparison, the European and Indian CBDs are different. In comparison, the European and the Indian CBD is different. Is different. Okay. देखो, American CBDs, they are the CBDs of modern cities, and most of them are post-industrial revolution. They are the cities of the 20th century. ये cities का long history नहीं है. Whereas Delhi, okay, or Varanasi, or London, or Berlin, or Prague, they have got a much longer history, right? The history goes back to, okay, medieval times, even ancient times. So these cities of India and Europe, America is the new world, right? America was discovered much later. Okay. Whereas Europe was an older civilization, or Europe has older cities. So in Europe and in India, these cities, they will have lot of historical legacy with them. In historical legacy, you cannot make tall buildings. Most of them are 2-3 story, maximum 4 story. Think of, you're comparing New Delhi, again parts of South X, and compare that with Old Delhi, Chandni Chowk. Old Delhi, Chandni Chowk, 2, 3, 4 buildings, tak khadam, that's all. And in those areas, because it's a very old area, originally those population were very rich population. Okay. So in those old cities, the rich live near the center of the market. And most of them will have shops in the ground floor, and they will have houses in the upper floors. We call this as mixed land use. American CBDs have single land use, only commercial. The traditional ones will have both. They'll have commercial and residential. They'll not be tall buildings. And importantly, that most of the CBDs are historical significance, so they actually come to life in the evenings. Our offices are shut, the hotels open up, the restaurants open up, the tourists are there, and now it becomes the center of all activity. I mean, if you ever go to Old Delhi Chandni Chowk, you understand how the dynamics, morning mein, you can't see too many people. The activity starts after the office hours. Okay, write down. What difference hai? Difference is, number one is, unlike the American CBDs, which have a shorter history, the Indian and the European CBDs have a much older history. Unlike American, the Indian and the European CBDs have a much older history, dating back to medieval times or even ancient times. Number two, okay. The buildings are not high-rise. And most of them have traditional architectures. They're not high-rise and they have traditional architecture. They'll have historical significance, old monuments honge. They'll have traditional architecture and they have old monuments. Next. Okay. There are mixed land uses, both commercial and residential. There are mixed land uses, both commercial and residential. And they are active, after office hours. The CBDs are active after office hours. Most of the CBDs of Europe and India, particularly in the traditional towns and cities, have monuments of historical significance. Please remind yourself, give examples from your own city, whatever you know. Kolkata, you have the Esplanade, okay, the parts of BBD Bagh, the Park Street, okay, your Charminar region of Hyderabad, okay. Delhi has, okay, the old city of Delhi, Chandni Chowk, Red Fort region, okay. Every city you'll have these kind of pockets. You figure out what you know about your city and mention that. The city with its traditional, we call these as old towns, bolte hain. The old towns or the old city. Mumbai, yes, Churchgate, but Churchgate, yes. Churchgate, Kolaba is still fairly modern there. Yes, I think Churchgate, yes. Take all of you? Okay. So that's for today. You have a case study in under 5 minutes. The new students, please make sure you take this down. Okay, you'll have the need of case studies eventually. Yes, you can. You can, Manshri. Delhi has a mix of all of them. Delhi में modern भी है, Delhi में traditional medieval वाला भी है. अच्छा. Now one thing, the old students will stay back at 3 o'clock. I'll continue with population geography. Okay, that's one. Second is, tomorrow's class with the cities and case study will be taken by Ajay sir. And I'll come back day after tomorrow. Yeah, we'll have case studies of these urban morphology along with 2 more models by Ajay sir, and I will join you day after tomorrow. Yeah, the old students join at 3 o'clock. Now you have your case study.